Well, hello, avid readers. I am so excited to have Angela Hunt here today. We are talking about her new book, which is biblical fiction. It's called Rescued Heart. Um, First of all, I love biblical fiction, but I think, Angie, one of the very first novels when I started reading Christian fiction was one of the biblical fictions, and we're talking a long time ago.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I just love your writing and how you deep dive in your research. But why don't you just start, for those who may not be familiar or just new to Christian fiction? Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I've been writing for, as you can infer, a very long time, and have written in many genres. But I do have a special place for historical fiction because that's
Mhm.
what I loved as a kid. And as a writer, of course, I love the biblical fiction because I love theology and I love Bible study and I love research. So, um, I've written over the years the story of Joseph and
That's, I think, the first
Moses.
one I read. I think Joseph was the first one that I read. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a trilogy. The first one was Dreamers. But let's see. Moses, I told his story through the eyes of the women. And then I did the Bible babes, the Esther, Delilah, and Bathsheba, women who got in trouble because they were so gorgeous. And then I did the intertestamental period mainly because I didn't know anything about it. So I
Mhm.
wrote about the Maccabees and about Cleopatra and Queen Salome Alexandra, who was really cool, and then King Herod, which of course led us up to the birth of Christ. And then I did four books set in the lifetime of Jesus about his friends and siblings. And then I did three books set in the cities where Paul established churches.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And then I thought, okay, what do I want to do next? And really, there was only one more thing that I wanted to do, and that was the matriarchs, um,
Yes.
Sarah, Rebecca, and then Leah and Rachel. So that's what I'll hold up my book because I know you just moved and you don't know where your books
I
are.
don't know where my book is.
But this is Rescued Heart, the story of Sarah. And I use the word rescue because she was kidnapped twice because she was just so gorgeous. Men wanted her. And what is it? These Bible babes really have a hard time, don't
I know.
they? So, anyway, I had a lot of fun. And the Bible doesn't really tell us a lot about Sarah. She's like a bit player in Abraham's story. She's only got one line of dialogue in the whole entire Bible. So I found this book called the Book of Jasher, which was is mentioned in the scriptures twice. So in Bible times, people knew about Jasher and that he was writing all these stories down. And it's not scripture. In fact, as I was working with it, I found contradictions in it and
Mhm.
contradictions with it and the scripture. But they were little things like dates and times and how many years somebody lived, somebody in. But the stories were fascinating and they filled in the gaps of Sarah's life. And so I knew I was writing fiction.
Mhm.
So if it's not true, well then in heaven someday I'm going to sit down with Sarah and we're going to figure out what really happened and what didn't. But it just gave such a fuller picture of her life, and I just loved using that material.
Oh, I love that. And I love that, because you are so detailed about your research and you want to find out. It's not like you're like, oh, I'll just make it be like this. You really
Oh
look
yeah.
into it. And I've written three. So I've written Miriam, Hannah, and Esther are the three biblical novels that I've done for Guideposts. But what I was amazed is, especially with Esther, um, there's like it's historical, so there's the Greeks wrote about her, the Persians wrote about her, like all these other people wrote about her. And I love you talking about, you found this other book, but there's other people that write about the people from the
Yeah.
Bible, not just the Bible, because it was happening in history. And so there might be
Yeah.
like one of them with Esther, she was the wicked queen because it was written by the Persians. And of course, a
Uh-huh.
lot of Persians were slaughtered. And so they consider it almost a Holocaust, that she was a wicked queen. And like, I can see that from their point of view. But the fact that it's in history and people's like, I don't believe the Bible's true. I'm like, then you can't believe any of history because this is woven in there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's to me that's what gives a story, because the Bible is just gives us pencil sketches, you know.
Mhm.
And so these people really did live, and so you have to go to the extra biblical material. I did the same thing with Joseph. I studied a lot of Islam has some information on him that I found fascinating, and it helped me to pinpoint which pharaoh I thought he was
Mhm.
under. You know, nobody
Yeah,
can agree on
yeah.
which pharaoh ruled when and whatever. So, anyway, I just love it when the pieces come together, as they say on the A Team or whatever that show was.
Yeah, yeah, yes, I love it. Okay, yeah, and I love right from the beginning, you do put that note that it's, the pencil sketches, and you add color and texture and context, and that's what a novelist does. And it's the same true if we wrote about Abraham Lincoln. Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot of information, but you don't know like that day what he wore or what he ate or all those things. And so I love how, you talk about filling in the pages of Sarah's life while staying biblically faithful, and I love that. But so at the beginning, you have her talk. She's an older bride.
hmm,
We're in of the Chaldeans. So just open up the scene for us because I just find this fascinating. These places in history and kind of the culture that makes you like. The more I discover the culture around um, these people, the patriarchs, I realize like it's amazing that God was able to pluck them out and do so
yeah.
much because everything around them was completely there's so much stuff, so I'll let you explain because you can explain it better than I can.
Oh, okay. Well, I had always wondered. Okay, we knew that God told Abraham to leave her and move to the place where I will tell you, right? You and your family. But I always thought, how did Abraham know anything about God?
Mhm.
Because Ur was a pagan city,
Yeah,
and Jewish tradition tells us that his father, Terah, was an idol worshiper and actually made idols. Some of them say he was like an idol craftsman. And I thought, so where did he learn about Adonai? But the book of Jasher has this amazing story. And in a nutshell, this is it. The day that Moses, I did this the other day. I keep calling him Moses, but I guess Abram. The day Abram was born, Terah was the vizier to the king, very important in the king's court, like his right hand man. And so all of the other court officials came to his house to celebrate the birth of a baby boy when Abram was born. But on their way out, as they were leaving, they looked up in the sky and there were, signs and wonders in the sky, probably some comets or something. And
right.
so one of them interpreted and said, oh no, this means, look what's happening there. This means that this child is going to grow up and be the father of a people that's going to destroy Nimrod and Nimrod's kingdom. And then as they went home, they got together. They probably went down to the corner bar and were
Right.
talking, and they said, "Oh my goodness, what do we do? Because if we tell the king, he's going to be really upset. But if we don't tell him and he finds out about the signs and wonders in the sky, he's going to be upset and have us all killed because we didn't warn him." So they went to the king and they told him, and of course he was upset and he said, "Bring me that baby boy." So Terah waited 2 days, and you'll find out why, because he had a maidservant that was about to deliver a baby. And so when her baby was born, he took that child to the king, and the king killed it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then he took his wife, her name was Amthello. She was his second wife. Um, so Amthello and the baby went in the wilderness and lived for 10 years. But the child was growing up, and so they didn't know what to do. Amthello wanted to go back to civilization. And so she went back, and they sent 10-year-old Abram to live in the mountains where Noah and Shem and
Mhm.
their families lived. Noah lived 300 years after the flood. He lived 950 years. The flood came when he was 600, and there were 50 years that he was alive when Abram was born. So they overlap by 50
Wow.
years. And the book of Jasher tells us that they had like a school of study, and that Noah and Shem, his son, would tell everybody about the ways of Adonai and the precepts of the Lord, what they knew. I mean, this was before the Torah. This was before
Yes,
the
yes.
Ten Commandments. This was early. But they told them what they knew, and they told them the story of the flood. They told them about Adam and Eve. Otherwise, how would Abram have known these things? And
Yes.
so he grew up knowing about Adonai, the creator God, and everything. And he had been betrothed to um, her name was Ishka in the beginning. Sarai's name was Ishka. And he was betrothed to her when they were both very young. But he waited until the Lord told him to go and take his bride. So she was 39 in my book
Right.
when they got married. And, she was so beautiful. Her father made her wear a veil all the time, and because the boys were starting to stare and all that sort of thing. So, anyway, they got married. And as a wedding present, Abram had nothing. He'd just come from the mountains where he'd been a shepherd. And remember, was a big city, so there was this
Yes.
little, it was like a farm boy coming to town. He had nothing, and so he gave her a new name, Sarai, or however they pronounce it. And this, you're going to be, this is your new name, my princess. And so he knows he wants her to worship Adonai, the Lord, but everybody in the city worships idols, and he doesn't know quite how to do this. So then he does some rather interesting experiments to prove to her the
Mm,
power of Adonai. So I need
yeah.
to let you jump in here because I'm running out of breath.
Well, this actually leads to my next question. Because first
Uh-huh.
of all, the name change was super interesting to me. But the question I had here is that she has to leave behind the idols that she grew up with and follow Abram's unseen God. And so that's a huge spiritual struggle. And when you study about Ur, they had the ziggurats. They had like
Yeah,
almost pyramids. It was a big, like, it wasn't just a little village. Like, it was a big city. And then Nimrod, that name sounds familiar. It talks about Nimrod in the Bible a couple times, and very like the story of Gilgamesh kind of reminds me of Nimrod. It's like, I don't know. It's like this is this ancient culture that's very rich culture. This
yeah,
is not like, again, this is like taking her from New York City and like, we're gonna go to Oklahoma, girl, and
yeah,
you're gonna have to like follow all these things. And so, talk about that spiritual struggle. It was the same true with the Israelites leaving Egypt. It like
yeah,
they were surrounded by the culture of these idols and this worship. And I like, the more that I study history like you, like, and to get into it and read sources outside the Bible, which it's all connected, it just makes me realize, like, this is even more of a miracle than we even understand.
yeah,
How
yeah,
these people come to know and believe God.
yeah. Well, hope I'm not spoiling it for anybody, but Abram conducts this experiment. As I said, he goes to his father's house, Terah's house, and Terah's at work. He's at the palace, and he asks Samthello, his mother, fix some dishes of savory meat. And Sarai is there, and he says Sarai will want to know how to make these, how I like them. And
Yeah.
so his mom is fixing savory meat, and he says, all right, put them on dishes in front of um, Terah had a courtyard that was just filled with idols. And he
Hmm.
said, put the plates in front of all the idols. They must be hungry. And she said, are you sure? And he says, yeah, do it. So she does. And he says, all right, I'm going to sit here and wait until they eat it. And then I'll leave. And of course, they don't eat it. And
Yeah, you're right.
and even Sarai is going, well, it's the spirit in the idol. We're not worshiping the idol. We're worshiping the spirit, which was more true than she realized, because
Mm,
scripture tells us those idols were inhabited, so to speak, with
mhm.
demons. And he's like, no, if you're going to worship these idols of wood and stone, then they can eat it. And of course, they never did. And then by the time Terah gets home, Abram has flown into a rage and destroyed all of his idols. And this comes straight from Jewish tradition.
Yeah.
So I didn't make this up. I'm really not much of a fanciful. My imagination, I rely on reported facts and reported stories. So anyway, um, Terah is, of course, horrified at what he's done, but he knows if he doesn't tell Nimrod what he's done, Nimrod
Mhm.
will hear about it and will fry Terah. So he turns Abram in to the king, and the king orders Abram put in a fiery furnace. And
Oh, wow.
also his half brother, Nahor. No,
Yeah.
his name was Haran. His name was Haran. And so they both get put in the furnace, and Abram survives because God protects him, but Haran dies because he did not have faith. And
Wow.
so that act is enough to convince Sarai that, okay, this God is real. Adonai has power. I will accept that. But her whole struggle throughout the novel is like a lot of Christians. You know, the parable of the seed that Jesus gave
Yeah.
us. The first seed doesn't do anything, it just falls to the ground. The second seed sprouts a little and then withers. The third seed, though, it springs up and it even puts out some leaves, and but then it withers and dies. And so Sarai is a lot like that person. She's seen the power of Adonai, she can pray to him, but she doesn't really accept him. She's not willing to trust him. And one of the reasons why is because God has told Abram, you're going to have a child. You and
Mhm.
Sarah are going to have a child. And she gets older and older and older. She goes through menopause, and this child never comes. And so her faith dwindles and is
Mhm.
fading away. But then at the end of the book, she does come around and begin to really place saving faith in the Lord. And so that's really kind of the point of the whole story.
Yeah, it is the point, and I love how her story arc, like her real life story arc, is I think so many people can relate to. Like you've hoped and hoped and hoped until the point where it's impossible. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
impossible that God can ever answer this prayer, this longing, this desire. And so I love how fiction and your books especially, it's like when we put the book down, like oh yeah, God can still answer my prayers. Like even though we're reading about someone else and we're but that spiritual arc is always so strong, and I think it does give hope to those people that feels like I don't even know why I'm hoping anymore. This is not going to happen. God must love other people and not me. And so, yeah, it's the balance of the heartbreak and the hope after all these years. And I know, like in your life, in all our lives, there's those moments. And how, as an author, do you dig deep in those moments of, okay, kids, we got to make these characters relatable, digging deep into your own feelings of God's never going to answer this prayer. Look what God done. How do you do that in your novels?
Yeah. Well, one thing I honestly believe is that God sends writers painful experiences so we can
I
write
wish
about
someone would have told me this before. I like. I remember being part of a group. It was for nonfiction, but the same thing in our fiction groups, and thinking like these women have so many problems. I don't even know what's wrong with them. And then I realized like, oh, I see. Like we have to have
uh,
something to write about.
oh yeah, yeah. But my husband and I struggled with infertility for 3 years. And so when Sari is going through all that at the age where she's still young enough to have kids, I mean, she was the mistress of Abram's big camp. He becomes very wealthy. There's all these servants and people around, and they're young and they're having babies. They're popping out babies right and left, and she has to smile and congratulate them, and she gets to where she can't even do it, and that comes straight from my life. When I was young and we were trying to have a baby, all my friends were having babies, and I would get invited to their baby showers, and I went to one, and this kind woman patted me sympathetically on the shoulder, and that just broke me. I spent the rest of the night crying in the bathroom. And I, from that point on, I said, I'm just going to send a gift
Yeah.
from in the future. For I just can't do it. I can't put myself through that. It's too painful. So Sari goes through that, and I was writing about it. And my editor, when she read the submission draft, she wrote, "This feels so real," and I thought, yeah, no kidding. Been there, done that. But
Yeah.
um, but I love what happened to her. Oh, and by the way, I love this was in the book of Jasher, and it is also Jewish tradition. Um, when we read the scripture and we study their ages, Sarai was 90 years old when the king Abimelech of the Philistines saw her and said, Vavavoom, I want her in my harem. So, why would he do that to a 90-year-old woman? Well, the tradition is that as she was getting ready, as God was getting ready to send Isaac, she started getting younger, kind of a Benjamin
Mm.
Button kind of thing. So I write scenes where she's looking in her looking glass going, my neck looks better than it used to. And Abram says, are you kidding? Look at yourself. You really are. You're looking beautiful. And so she's actually pregnant when she's taking to in Abimelech's harem. And then this is after menopause.
Right.
And then she comes out and she's she gets pregnant or starts showing. And Jewish tradition says that she was not only able to nurse Isaac, she was able to nurse all the babies in the camp if they needed
Wow.
extra milk because poor woman.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. I think that's like when we see the ages of people too, and they were close to creation. I just think God's created these perfect bodies, and over time, it's hard. I mean, because you have people having babies later in life, and she's one of them. But I never heard that part of her aging backwards a little bit. Like that's really cool, and I love, like you said, there's Jewish tradition that's been passed on, and like when we get to heaven, we'll get to figure out all of it. But I
That's
just
right.
love that you help us understand and bring these characters to life, and so. When I was looking at Amazon reviews and some of your other books, people, this was a common theme that they said is readers say your biblical novels make ancient people feel real and relatable. Their struggles of marriage
Uh,
and doubt and faith. And it's so true when we have struggles in our life. It says, give comfort to others where we received comfort, or when we've gone through those things. Um, you know, it just helps us to like make it come to life. And sometimes it's not things we want to sign up for. We never would have wanted to sign up for, but God can use those things. Okay, so my next question is: you wrote about Sarah, but you've also written about Esther and Bathsheba. All these other people. How is this different, or was this different? Is there anything different about Sarah's story?
from all the other women.
Yeah.
Um, well, their situations were all vastly different.
Hmm.
But over and over again, God plucks a believer and
Hmm.
plops them in the middle of a pagan culture. We saw
Hmm.
that with Sarah. We saw it with Esther.
Hmm.
And we kind of see the opposite with Delilah. We have this pagan woman who gets dropped into the middle of believing the Jewish culture in her association with Samson. And although he wasn't always really faithful to what he believed.
It just makes me feel better though. And this is what I've told my kids when we do Bible study, because we adopted older kids from foster care, and they're like,
Uh-huh.
how did you believe this is true? I'm like, okay, if you were to write stories about your people, would you put these stories? Would you make someone like Samson a hero? Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
would
Uh-huh.
you? No, you wouldn't write about all the of David, the greatest, godliest king, having an affair and killing the husband. Like you would make it like the Greek gods, where they just all have this power and do all the things they want. You wouldn't write these stories, which makes me feel
Yeah.
like it's true because this is their history, and people like Bathsheba and Samson or Delilah and
Yeah.
Samson, like you wouldn't put that in a book unless it was real.
Yeah. This Jewish lady wrote me about the Samson story, and she said you have him shooting a rabbit, but rabbit is not kosher, and he would never have shot a rabbit. And I laughed and I said, well, he wouldn't have eaten honey from a dead carcass either, and he wouldn't have done this or that. I said he was not living a very kosher life.
No, he wasn't living.
I mean, but the point is that times change and situations are always different, but human nature remains the same. And that's why we can write historical fiction, because people are the same. We all love, we grieve, we do wrong, we confess, we feel bad, we suffer. I mean, we you and I have the same feelings and emotions that Sarah and Esther and everybody did, and our readers do. So that's
Yeah.
what enables us to tap into that.
Yes, I know. Oh, I love it. Okay, so this is the first of a series. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about what we can expect.
Oh, I'm so excited because it's almost done. I just got into it, and my books are spaced like a year apart. But I was telling my agent, I said, I can't just stop because I've got all this stuff in my head and I want to get it all down and then just get them done. So, anyway, Rebecca is next. It picks up right where this leaves off. And so it's the story of Rebecca. And then the next book is the story of Leah. And of course, Rachel's in there too, but she dies pretty young.
Right.
So, boom, boom, boom. And it covers all of the matriarchs in this 1 3 book series. And it's just fascinating to me. I've picked up one thing you learn as when you write a novel, you have to have a timeline. And
Hmm.
since nobody knows what year it was, well, I mean, people have different opinions, but it's hard to find anybody that agrees. I did it according to their ages. And you mentioned this about how people live longer and did things. And do you realize I figured it out? Jacob, the girls, meaning Rachel and Leah, were probably 18 when he met them. He
Mm.
was 77. Yeah, it's true. 77. The Bible says all right, the Bible gives us the age he was when he went down to Egypt. I think it was
Right.
130. And at the time we know that Joseph, he was 30 when he ascended to be Pharaoh's right-hand man. And so it was the 7 years of plenty and then about 2 years of famine by the time that Jacob went down. So that means, do the math. Math was never my strong suit, but I have checked this and double checked it. Um, Jacob was 91 when Joseph was born. And so by
Mm.
the time you subtract the number of years they were married, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, yes, he was 77 when he
Wow.
met them.
Yeah.
And can you
And all those
imagine
kids,
them?
no, no. I
Yeah.
just think they had to make me look younger. Like they just had to not look like they were like we see as 77. Because
I
18.
I yeah, I think men were stronger and more, they lasted longer back
He
then.
did, yeah.
It could be the second law of thermodynamics at play, which says that like things deteriorate over time. So we could be talking about how human DNA has
Mhm.
devolved, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or some people have said that the flood caused a protective layer of
Mhm.
cloud to dissolve. And so then we immediately started suffering the effects of UV rays. And I don't know, there's all kinds of theories, but
There
it's
is. I love the Creation Museum in Kentucky.
uh huh,
It has a lot of these things. You could just get lost
uh huh.
in it, and it has a lot of these things. And like that makes sense. That's why if that's why people. So he must have, even though he's 77, it'd be like you know someone that maybe looks 40 now. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I described him as he had strands of gray in his hair when they met. He had strands of gray in his hair, but he was still strong and
Mm.
broad, and he was a hard worker, and yeah, he was not decrepit. Yeah.
Yeah, and those babies were born quickly,
Oh
all
yeah.
the kids. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Leah was having babies, and yeah. So never mind. I don't want to go into too many
We
details.
could literally talk about this all day
I
long.
know.
Like it's so fascinating. It is just like so fascinating. I love it so much. But it is also funny, and I know you probably have done this too, Angie. When you're in a sermon or hear someone preach, and then they'll just throw something out there, like, well, actually, like because we've done research, they'll say like Jacob never saw his parents again. I'm like, well, actually, if you go back to Genesis, like it's in our mind, which is such a great thing to be an author and to spend this much time in God's word and then other outside sources of history. It's just like your mind. I remember when I first sat down with the Bible, I didn't understand anything. And it truly
Uh-huh.
is. When we write fiction, we just learn so much.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it makes me sad for those people who say, "Oh, I don't read fiction because I only read what's true." And I think, oh, novels are true. They're based on true principles, and the good writers base it on true history.
Mhm.
And that's why I put an author's note in the back and carefully explain this is true, this is probably true, this is not true. I made this up. But honestly, if I wrote a book um, just on what the Bible said, I would have to make up everything
Yeah.
about Sarah's life because the Bible doesn't give us any details. That's
Hmm.
why I loved the book of Jasher. I love finding that. And in Rachel's book, I also discovered another ancient book called the Book of Jubilees, and it had a lot of stuff about Rebecca. And, she speaks more words in the Old Testament than any other woman.
Wow. And there
She's
weren't always very positive ones.
But the reason why I was so excited to write this series was because I worship at a Messianic synagogue.
Mm.
And so my rabbi was talking about Rebecca, and he said she was the righteous one, not Isaac so much. And
Oh, wow.
I did a what? What? And he said, think about it. When she was pregnant, she went and sought the Lord. The Bible tells us
Yeah,
this. And he told her, there are two nations in your womb, and the younger is going to rule the elder. So she knew from before they were born
that's
that
true.
Jacob was going to be the one who inherited the covenant. He would be the leader, and Esau would
Mhm.
not be. And so when Isaac was getting ready to give Esau the blessing of the firstborn, which he should not have had, and she knew it, she did that little switcheroo.
Oh, so that makes sense. Oh my god, this is so good. I cannot wait to read that one now. This
I
is so
know
good.
it's so I had questions, and I used to think that a woman should do anything. We're supposed to obey our husbands, period. But then I thought, well, no. Rebecca knew her husband was
Okay,
about to
that's
make a
good then.
major
Then I take back that
mistake.
it wasn't always positive. She was following what God had directed. Okay, that's good. So
Yeah,
good. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so we could just literally talk all day, but
Yes, we could.
the book, the title is Rescued Heart, and it's just releasing right now. Um, Yay! And so
Isn't she
I
pretty?
love the audiobooks. I cannot wait to dig into the audiobook and just fully it's my escape when I'm folding laundry or doing dishes or driving kids around. But Angela, where can people go to find out more about you, all of your books, and then find this book too?
Okay, my website is angelahuntbooks.com. I'm on Facebook as Angela Hunt, no, author Angela Hunt. And I just started about a month ago a readers group. It's called the Round Table Readers, and it's just for
Oh,
people who love books and want to talk about books. It's kind of like avid Christian readers, but
yeah,
it's more of me. I do direct the conversation.
good.
Um,
Yeah.
every day I pose a question, and then we chat. And if you are interested in writing, I have a newsletter just for people who want to be serious
Ooh,
writers, and it's angelahunt.substack.com. So
awesome.
that's it.
And we will make sure to have all those in the show notes. So if you're like, wait, I'm driving, I didn't get those, go to the show notes. We'll have all the links for you. But Angie, thank you so much for being here today. I literally cannot wait to get this on Audible and just listen to it. So, and then the one after it, I just cannot wait to read about Rebecca. I mean, all your books I have just enjoyed. And again, I just remember when I found Christian fiction, I just found a treasure in you, and I still think I found a
Mm.
treasure in you. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Trisha. Blessings on your day, busy woman.
Thank you.